Where sweet potato is primarily a home garden crop, women are likely to be much more knowledgeable about it, since they are almost always responsible for cultivating gardens. Old people's knowledge is likely to be rich in the practices and skills of subsistence agriculture, which was the principal goal of Philippine agriculture 50 years ago, but may be poor in the sophisticated techniques of intensive commercial vegetable production. These differences in indigenous knowledge produced by location and gender are systematic differences, and it's very important to understand this variation in order to ensure a comprehensive documentation of indigenous knowledge and also to help build productive partnerships with the right local people for participatory research. Of course, when considering these variations, we must also consider other variations caused by human uniqueness. Some people are more observant than others. Some farmers are more likely to notice mutants or introgressed plants amongst their land races and to experiment with them. Indigenous knowledge is an accumulation of practical experience which is recreated and reinforced during each agricultural performance and in relation to different agroecological and climatic changes. It is not an abstract system, nor is it a collection of isolated traits or peculiar behaviors. Because IK has evolved during the practice of agriculture, it is orientated both towards development and survival. People often describe IK as traditionalist or conservative, but this is simply an operation of a necessary caution. Farmers in difficult environments may hesitate to adopt modern varieties which are highly responsive to favorable environments and the application of expensive inputs. But farmers are certainly on the lookout always for unfamiliar cultivars growing in neighbours' fields or in nearby villages. A visit to a regional gene bank is the opportunity to take cuttings of cultivars with certain characteristics that appeal to the farmer. Such experimentation with new material is the main source of the immense genetic diversity we find in the land races of major crops. Intensification of limited field space through intercropping and the use of irrigation are other examples of the application of indigenous knowledge for enhanced development. There are three main ways we can work with and build on indigenous knowledge. First, collection and documentation of plant genetic resources related knowledge. Second, assessment and evaluation of new breeding lines. And third, in situ conservation of crop genetic diversity and the development of local innovations. There are several reasons why it is important to document indigenous knowledge of cultivars. The documentation process itself makes more explicit and accessible farmers' own knowledge. It also helps scientists understand the crop and particularly the cultivars much better. It enhances understanding of farmer preferences, the rationale farmers have for the choice of varieties, and also the prioritization they give to those varieties. This in turn helps breeders to fine-tune their breeding objectives in response to user needs. Furthermore, it makes land races more accessible as parents in breeding activities. And finally, it facilitates the direct testing of selected land races by other farmers in other areas. Collection and documentation of IK can be useful in other ways. It can reinforce the importance of conservation within communities and the importance of genetic diversity as a resource. We can work together with farmers to assess new breeding lines or exotic varieties. This allows us the chance of rapid selection of good bet material based on the local knowledge and preference of farmers.
What do you think of the vines, the leaves, the roots?
These leaves are bigger than our traditional varieties. The vines are not widely spreading, which we like. It seems to be early maturing, which we also like. These leaves are bigger than our traditional varieties.
color sa iyang panit. Hasta ang iyang muna iyang color sa iyang unod. Unsa may imong ika sulti aning iyang color sa panit, ang iyang unod.
Ang akong ikasulti daan ang iyang kuan, iyang panit nga murag sada siya kay murag di kay baga nipit-nipit sa iyang panit.
The third area for synergy between indigenous knowledge and global science is in situ conservation of genetic resources and a corresponding local experimentation. Though in situ or farmer-based conservation of land races has existed for millennia, it is now under threat. Household labor is reduced as children stay longer in school. Families face increasing economic hardship and so resort to on and off-farm labor or even migration to increase family income. Under these pressures, there is less time to conserve a wide range of land races. From studies carried out in Philippines, we have seen that the number of species grown by farmers in Mindanao has increased between the 1960s and the 1990s, but the number of land races of particular species has declined. We need to help transform existing individual household conservation, which is a private, often tacit activity, into a more public, self-conscious activity. We call this support scaling up in situ conservation. Scaling up can involve encouraging households to link their individual conservation efforts in a network or to pool their diversity in a communal gene bank.